Welcome to the shutter installation part of our project, and hopefully it's going to be part of your project as well. The Kimball shutter is an absolutely fantastic product for a number of reasons. First of all, it's extremely well engineered. It has only a few pieces. By the looks of it, it's going to last forever. So what we did was we took apart the entire thing and we'll explain the pieces and put it all back together for you. So that way you get to see how the whole thing works, and it's a lot easier than to manage the whole process. So this is the actual shutter box that sits on top of the window, and you'll see that down the road. The shutter sits on a roll. The motor is inside the shuttle, the shutter container, the scroll if you will. This is a slightly smaller unit. If you have a little bit larger unit, then the motor sits on the outside, but everything is exactly the same. The shutter is aluminum, and it comes in number of standard colors, and I think you can even get whatever color you want. It comes fairly assembled. So the box is actually upside down right now because the track will come out here. I just flipped it over so that you can see, get a better view of the entire process. So now let's go over the other components. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, there's this little wire sticking out through the side, which you can have actually coming out the top or the side or wherever you need access to the wiring. This then is fed into a standard electrical outlet. So it is powered. You can pick up the power from any point near the shutter. So let's move on to the next part and the rest of the components. Next, I'm thinking inside the box you're going to find some styrofoam pieces, which will show you how they fit back in. Little grooves in here. What they do essentially is serve two purposes. Number one, insulation of course, and number two, it keeps the shutter mechanism tightly confined. So it also makes it quieter as well, and the mechanism is very quiet. There's a little bit of weather stripping. Well, it looks like a hairy little thing, like a giant centipede. This is a guard where the shutter comes out. We took that out for you as well. These are the two plastic pieces, vinyl, three pieces, which will show you how to install, and that will form the bottom of the box. The shutter itself, when it exits the box down in front of the window, run down two tracks. So the shutter comes in, and again we'll show you how that works. This will be on the two sides of the window, and the window's behind it, and the shutter just slides beautifully down all the way down to the bottom. There are a couple of these straps, steel straps, that will be used to attach the box itself to the window. So we'll show you how that works. And you'll have some of these. You would be using 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the size of your own particular mechanism, to attach the box to the outside frame of your window opening. Now, one very important point when you're planning the shutter installation is to make sure that the rough opening where you're going to install the shutter is larger than the window. Typically, if you just install a window, you're going to add a 1/4 inch all around. So if you have a 3 foot by 3 foot window, your rough opening will be 3 feet and 1/4 inch by 3 feet and 1/4 inch. Here, you're going to have to add the width of the track, which is basically 3 inches, or equivalent to a 2 by 3. You'll get the exact measurements from the manufacturer, from Kimball directly, so don't worry about that. So you'll be adding this to the width of your rough opening, and you'll be adding the height of your box to the rough opening as well. So when you when you frame in your rough opening, it's going to look much larger than it actually will after it's all closed in. So, tools you need: very straightforward. You need a Robertson, a screwdriver. Doesn't have to be powered, you can use it by hand. A flat-headed screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver. So these are the components. So now let's go over the window itself to see how that's assembled. Alright, so now we've got the window here. Your window will be similar. There are two types of window installations. You'll see these little brackets here, which may not be on your particular window. The reason it is on this window is because the windows themselves are made of fiberglass. So the manufacturer provided us with a bunch of these clips, and these clips slide into the tracks, and just like that, and you snap them in. So when the window is installed, then these are the clips that will hold the window in place. For our situation, we needed to use these clips to affix 2x3, standard 2x3 off-the-shelf stock lumber onto the two sides of the window. And those are the pieces that are going to hold this in place. So no matter what your particular window configuration is, you have to attach two 2x3 pieces of lumber the exact length of the window, the exact height of the window on both sides. In some cases you can screw directly through the frame as if you were attaching the window into the rough opening, or screw it right into the 2x3 from the inside and then plug it up. We use the clips, but the process and the application and the end result is exactly the same. The next step is to start assembling and attaching the actual shutter mechanism to the window itself. So what you have to do is take one of the pieces of tracks here, which the manufacturer, obviously Kimball, provides as part of the whole assembly, and you'll have to put a screw into the top of each one of these tracks. So that means the box will also be held. This is sort of the first point of attachment between the shutter mechanism and the window itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this to the 2x3 rather, on the window. So we're going to take a couple of screws and just attach that right there. So let me get those screws and let's pop them in. The frame, this little plastic attachment piece, is cut in a little bit to allow for the 2x3 on each side, so that this piece sits flush with the front of the window and just slightly overlaps it. So let's see if we can attach this fella in here. Okay, so we've installed the top piece. That's the first part of holding the shutter mechanism on. The second thing we have to do is to complete that top section, and you'll see that these pieces will marry up, pretty good and pretty quickly. And a little track here, so you can just line it up like this and slide it in, and they lock into place just like that, and it should go fairly easily. Perfect. So now we can move on to the next step. Okay, with the top component installed, the 2x3s installed, we're ready to go to the next level. So let's turn the window over, and you will be able to see that what we did, quite simply, is put these little screws in there with the little red rubber tracks. And they just go right in the center, 3 of them, with a regular screwdriver, because you'll see that the track has a little groove in it. So installing the track is really very straightforward. Just slide it on. So let's turn our window, put it on its back, and make sure that the felt is on the inside and the foot is on the bottom. So you can just slide it right in. Right up to the top. Done. Next, the other side. Again, the same thing. The felt is on the inside. So the shutter is going to slide down beautifully right over the window. Again, we have the 3 screws with the plastic tracks in there, and you just line it up and slide it in. We're almost done. Because now, when you lift it up and you set it down, you can see how the window is flanked. An important consideration on installation when you're designing how your final look is going to be. You have a couple of ways of doing it. You can have the tracks exposed, just like that, which is one approach, or you can bring your fascia, which is the way we've done it, and you'll be able to. We'll show you how that look is in a few minutes. If you don't want any of the shutter mechanism visible, which is the beautiful thing about Kimball, is it's a completely 100% hidden system that looks like the shutter is just magically coming out of the house. And it's I have to say I'm pretty excited about that, because it's just, not only is it super cool, it's like it adds a certain je ne sais quoi to your house, and brag factor too to your neighbors, if that's important to you. So okay, so we're almost done. So now let's install the top of the mechanism, the actual mechanism of the shutter. Alright, now one of the things that you have to keep in mind here, especially when you're handling the shutter a lot, as if, not as much as what we've done here, of course, but in transit, sometimes the shutter itself can slip out of the casing and the track. Very easy to adjust it, so don't worry about that. We'll show you how to do that later, in case the window was on its side or even upside down in some cases, because the shutter has to come out of the box and into this track. So when the shutter is in a full up position, it will always have to stick out just a little bit, just enough so that it will continue to come down. So that's part of the adjustment process to make sure after installation that that's the case. And obviously you'll see we'll have to do that because ours is completely, jumbled around. So this is the bottom of the shutter here. So the shutter is going to come out this way, which means we have to turn the box this way and feed it through down into and over the window. Alright, I just spun the window around, and what I did to make installation easier if you're working solo is I just took the box, the shutter mechanism, and you can see it's flopping around, so don't worry about it. What you need to do is the plastic piece that you put on the top, that you saw me do in previous segment, will fit right in here. And if you have the box level to the same height, as you can see I've leveled it so that the shutter box is level with the tracks, you'll be able to slide it in beautifully and marry the two up. There's a little white protrusion here that lines up with the middle of the track. It'll all be very obvious to when you're looking at it, especially if you've watched this. So we're just going to slide it in, put in a couple of screws, then we're going to attach this component, put back the styrofoam, the cover, and we're done. So the next step is, let's just attach the shutter mechanism itself. So that just slid in beautifully on that side. One screw here. This is a Phillips. Don't over tighten these screws. They don't need to be excessively tightened, just so that they fit snug, and that's it. Now let's just Do the other side. There, that just lined up beautifully. Again, because I leveled the box with the window. So, what this does actually, more than anything else, is it makes sure that the shutter will exit the shutter box, I guess I would call it, and enter the track, you know, very, very, you know, straight and properly every single time. So this is not structural. That's why you don't have to over tighten it. It's mostly, you know, an alignment issue. So now what we're going to do is make sure that we can, now we get into the structural part of it, which is to attach these things. So let's do that one next. Okay, so we're almost done. One of the last steps of the actual assembly is to make sure that our shutter box is affixed nice and strong to the window itself. So you'll see 1, 2, 3 screws here, and we're just going to line those up here. You can see that the steel bar is level or in line with the wood, the 2x3. So we're going to use these screws provided by Kimball for us for this exact operation. Again, I can't stress that you should be very careful not to over stress the screws. Now, make sure everything is lined up nicely. Alright, now we're going to flip it over. Make sure that the shutter mechanism is sitting properly inside there, and put in the styrofoam, and we'll be good to go, and put it into the alright, so let me just lift this up so that you can see what we've done here. So now you can see that the whole thing is been assembled and is affixed, properly affixed. Everything is nicely lined up. So, well, basically, what I'm going to show you next, I'm going to spin this thing around so you'll be able to see the shutter actually just all jumbled up. You can see the shutter is just sort of hanging there inside. Well, what you have to do, you can grab it and roll it back. Alright, now I'm going to spin it back again so you get to see. Well, what I did here is I just fiddled with it. I rolled it back on onto the drum, and I just found the track, felt for it, and dropped the shutter straight in. So you can see with your wall, your finished wall coming to here, and your fascia of the house coming to here, and covering up the track, you will not be able to see the shutter mechanism at all. And when the shutter is up, all you see is the window, same as in any other home. At the press of a button, it'll just magically come out of nowhere. So let's put it in.